Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to another week of Forcible News. As always, if you prefer an article version of the news, be sure to click the link in the description below to go to tcgscrubs.com where we have the article. It's easier for references and stuff like that if there's just something you specifically want to look at or verify, different things like that. And as always, if you're looking for Forcible singles or sealed product, be sure to visit the link in the description below for Happy Little Hug Factory. They just confirmed they got a restock of all the starter decks, 20 of each starter deck. So that should be enough to last you guys at least a little bit before you sell them out again. They also still have booster boxes for the new set, so make sure you pre-order through them before they sell out once again. And as always, like I said, make sure you click that link in the description so they know we sent you. So we got a decent amount of things to go over this week, starting with a couple articles that came out on the Forcible website, the first of which goes over the judge program. The company officially announced the revamp to their judge program and a lot of the things that will entail. So a couple of those things we'll just highlight. If you want to see the full information, you can go to the website for Forcible and click on the article for that, or you can click on the TCG Scrub article where I might highlight some more things, and I also link to the main article itself. But so the first thing is that they're going to introduce levels. So currently it's just a flat thing. If you become a judge, you're a judge type of deal. Now they've introduced levels to it. Level 0, 1, 2, and 3 technically. Basically, level 0 is the lowest tier. Obviously, you can get this tier by applying through the sort of quiz or what have you online. And if you pass that, you'll be able to judge at local events, just your local small ARGs, different things like that are just sort of, if you need something for pre-release or your regular events, it's a way to officially have someone to designate for that. Level 1 is you can only take that test if you attend a GP like you do with the current test. And that one is where you're able to judge at ARG circuit series and higher level events. And then as you can imagine, it goes up from there. Level 2 is bigger events, and level 3 means you can judge at the actual World Grand Prix. So I'm really glad they made those distinctions, not only because it makes sure that there's a higher level of entry point for judges, especially for those bigger events, which we've had a lot of problems with, calls for rulings and stuff like that, but also makes easier access for the local level, because it's good just to have someone who's technically a certified judge at your local event, but who doesn't have to go out of their way to be that judge and type of thing. And you will be re-upping that. I think level 0 re-ups every quarter, and the other ones will re-up every I assume similar amount of time plus another upping every year or something like that to make sure you stay on top of what you need to know. So that's just the basics of it. They also introduced standards for the judging program. So if you're a judge, you have to follow guidelines as far as behavior at events, including behavior online as well. So your physical your digital presence, you can't just like go around doing or saying whatever you want. You have to adhere to these guidelines. So that's pretty cool. So they want to maintain a certain image for the company even through the judging program. So it's really cool steps to take that I really like. They also announced changes going forward to Grand Prix. So essentially, they're going to be integrating their system, which they currently have, the Forcible Maestro, I believe it's called, where your locals have this thing where they input info for the company. And now it's going to be a lot more integrated, where stores not only input info, but also input whenever they run events for locals and different things like that, and report on the results and stuff like that. And that'll make it so that they can receive promos and different things like that we had reported on last week. And this system will also play a hand in determining where events are held. So next season, they're going to be running what is called World Grand Prix Qualifiers. And these are a different way to get to Worlds through another means that isn't a GP. So basically, if a local store is big enough, a large enough venue, and has enough highest enough attendance that has been measured through that software, they could apply to become one of the stores to host the World Grand Prix Qualifier. This would come with full support from the company, including price support and essentially GP price support, depending on the attendance. Obviously it would vary from there, but I assume also it would come with invites to Worlds, judging by the name of it as well. And they said their goal is to have at least 8 of these World Grand Prix qualifiers, as well as 2 of the normal GPs that we've come to expect that our company run. This is kind of interesting. I'm curious how this will play out, especially when we get more information regarding it. It could be really cool, especially being able to get these events in more places, especially for large countries like the US that don't feel like they get enough events that qualify for Worlds in different regions, and it can also help fill in the gaps of maybe regions that aren't fully supported by the company, and the company would never go there on their own, but it makes it so there's a venue or an avenue that a place could conceivably run an event. It does feel like because the events are going to be held at regular game stores and not conventions, that it is going to be smaller attendance, and so there might be less hype around it or less attendance overall. I'd be curious to see how it plays out. I'm hoping not. I'm hoping it runs like a normal thing, but the hype of it still feels a little bit less because it's not going to be at a convention center and there'll only be 2 of those. But those 2 that are being run could be really big, epic things. So once again, I'm just curious to see how it'll run. I'm not quite sure, but it could be pretty cool. So we got some interesting news on a sort of a side thing. So as many of you might be aware of, there's a YouTube channel, Alpha Investments, run by Rudy. And a while back, he had stopped supporting Force of Will via he runs a store that distributes product and different things like that. And so he stopped buying Force of Will product due to various reasons, I think a year ago or so. And so he had announced that he's going to be buying a bunch of pallets of old Force of Will product that was at a distributor or something like that, and he's going to be selling it for super cheap. I assume through his Patreon, maybe through other avenues as well, and just like really interesting deals. So I thought that was pretty cool, way to circulate old product back in there for a lot more affordable than what it's running. A lot of it just currently isn't worth what it's being sold for to begin with. So that's kind of cool. And by old, I mean pre-Lapis cluster. It's mostly Grim and Alice cluster, I believe, product that he was able to get. We went into details, I believe, last week, if I remember correctly, on the news, but we had asked Rudy what this all meant, if it meant he was getting back into Force of Will, and if he was getting back into Force of Will, why? I'm going to read it off here so it's an exact quote. He said, quote, that he's getting back into Force of Will a lot heavier moving forward. He said the company has shown the discipline on cutting print runs and stability. I like it a lot. They grew up as a company and have stabilized the relationship with distributors, and everyone is happy internally now. I'll be offering the new Force of Will sets at an unbeatable price. So that's pretty cool, knowing that both him and other people are impressed with the direction Force of Will has taken as a company, just logistically, and might not necessarily have much to do with, you know, oh, they took strides balance-wise or doing this and that. It's just, hey, they're printing sets and they're not overprinting it. And there could be an argument to be made that they might be underprinting some of it, but I think underprinting at least is better than overprinting in most cases in the longevity of the game. So it's cool that he and other people have recognized that and are now getting back into the game in a big bagged way. So after that response from him, his official Patreon, he posted a big old thing announcing what he has going forward. So a couple bullet points that address this is that on the 22nd is when his big box specials will be going live. I believe that's the specials from the old Force of Will product he bought. And like I said, I think that's just available to his patrons. But also available to his patrons is the new Dawn Rises booster box, which he's going to be selling for $69.99 shipped, he said. So it's a really low price point if you guys are aware of not only Force of Will, but any TCG really. So once again, it is locked behind a paywall, so you have to be a patron or a certain tier patron actually to get it. So at least there's that sort of buffer. He did acknowledge that this is going to cause anger and different things among competitors, which is understandable, but we'll kind of see how this plays out. I'm curious, what if it would have any effect on the market, and if so, what it'd be, and if not, you know, sort of see how that goes down. But he did mention that. Curiously, he didn't mention anything about starter decks, which is pretty interesting because that's going to be a very important anchor going forward, especially for this first set and this entire cluster, having those rulers and those cards. So I'm curious if he may not know about that or what's going on there, but just a side thing I noticed. But that's just sort of what's going on there. It was a big enough story that I thought I'd let you guys know. Let me know what you guys think of that whole situation below. And lastly, we got a whole bunch of, not a whole bunch, but a decent amount of stuff about Worlds. So this is the last news happening before Worlds happens. So a couple things to go over that we found out, and just reiterate as well, is that if you're going to be following Worlds, make sure you tune into the live Twitch stream on the official Force of Will Twitch channel, twitch.tv/FOWTCG Japan, where Jeremy from from Ruler School is going to be live commenting the event over the several days that this happens, and so that'll be a lot of fun to watch, so make sure you tune into that. Jeremy also let us know that there's going to be a pre-release event during Worlds, I believe on Sunday, and so it's going to be a pre-release event that's open to the public, where if you're from the general public, you pay, you know, the pre-release price and you get in. But if you're participating in Worlds, you get to just participate in the pre-release for free. So I thought that was a really cool thing, and it plays into the whole idea of celebrating the game and all that. So bringing those Worlds competitors and giving them other stuff to do, especially because they're missing the pre-release weekend, which I find one of the most fun things to do in Force of Will is to go to the pre-release weekend. So it's cool that you're still able to participate in Japan nonetheless. Oscar also spotted on Twitter a post from Yamada. I believe he's an employee at Force of Will, who posted this sort of super pixelated image, and the translation of it roughly translates to a souvenir that's going to be given to Worlds participants. So we're not sure what that is, if it's a promo card or some sort of token, or maybe just some sort of little random memorabilia or what have you. So I'd be curious to see what that is, but I love myself little tiny knickknacks, so I'm really curious. And lastly, somewhat Worlds related, not entirely sure, but there's this image for Caster CC or CS, and it's some sort of tournament for Caster Chronicles. I'm not sure if it takes place at Worlds, coinciding with Worlds, or completely separate at a different date, but there's the trophy for first place. I haven't heard anything about a Casters tournament, so I'd be curious about this, but that'd be pretty cool if, to see how that turned out, how many people show up for a big Casters tournament, what decks they run, different things like that. But yeah, so that's all the news for this week. Let me know what you guys think. A couple different interesting stories happened there and bits of info and news. So yeah, let me know what you think below, and we'll see you guys next week.